What's up, Fleet? Forgotten Fox here, and today I will be giving you a review of the first premium aircraft carrier in World of Warships Blitz, the Graf Zeppelin. Now, in real life, this ship was Germany's white elephant. A good idea at first, but ultimately required more resources, time, and effort by the German Navy that by the time the war ended, she was only 80% complete. In World of Warships Blitz, however, she's fully functional and ready for battle. First, I'll be going over the recommended equipment that I have mounted. I went for fighters, as the Graf Zeppelin has very few aircraft reserves compared to her same tier counterparts. Thus, getting any of the hangar modifications will only give you 4 bombers at the cost of 1 torpedo bomber, or vice versa. The more expensive carrier modification that gives you extra fighters, bombers, and torpedo bombers only gives you 1 to 2 planes per type, which in my opinion is not worth your effort or your silver, as it is far more efficient to spec for the ship's strength, which is its fighters. Now, Wargaming totes the Graf Zeppelin as a secondary line carrier, and as such, I have mine spec'd with the deck protection modification and torpedo defense modification 1 in order to make the ship more tanky to incoming fire, thus increasing its survivability in the long run. As I mentioned earlier, with the smallest hangar capacity of any Tier 7 aircraft carrier, the Graf needs its planes to be performing as well as they possibly can. This is why I went for both the aircraft supplies as well as preventative maintenance in order to increase the overall health of the ship, thus increasing the time I'm alive and the amount of damage I can put out. As far as the commander is concerned, the Graf Zeppelin, being the only German aircraft carrier in the game, requires a commander that is spec'd specifically for it. This is quite a big inconvenience, as it prevents you from using the commander that you train on the Graf for any of the other German ships you may acquire, as well as providing minimal bonuses to the Graf from commanders that you might pull off of the cruiser or battleship lines. As far as the actual skills are concerned, the Graf is a hybrid ship, meaning that as well as going for the 3 aircraft carrier skills that improve your return speed, fighters, and dive bombers, I also went for the hydroacoustic search upgrades, because since the Graf does have hydroacoustic search too, it's really a waste not to improve its effectiveness to as good as you can get it. If you're really dedicated enough to get a level 12 commander, I do recommend Horizontal Protection Expert over Citadel Strike, as the amount of damage you get from each Citadel and the rate at which you get Citadels per game has a minimal effect on your overall battle results. You're far better off taking Horizontal Protection Expert, as it will keep you in the game longer, allowing you to deal more damage in return. Camouflage is pretty straightforward. The historical camouflage costs 2,500 gold and increases both your aircraft ordnance damage as well as giving your ship more hit points and less surface detection. If you're not willing to invest that much gold in the camouflage, you can always just refresh the Wings of Glory camouflage for 60 gold per 6 hours. Now, my overall review on this carrier is gimmicky, and I say that for a reason. The carrier does its job as a premium extremely well. As you can see here in this game, right off the bat, the fighters go to work on the enemy fighters. I'm scouting for my team, and look, there is an enemy Prinzoigan. Simple enough, I go in for the bombs and the torpedoes. I get 4 hits and 5 torpedoes with a flooding, no problem. Then I'm able to redirect my fighters down to engage the enemy offensive aircraft, and I start knocking them out of the sky one by one. Now, while I might make this look easy, there are a lot of players who have trouble controlling their aircraft squadrons with this level of precision. And the Graf, with only half the carrier capacity of all the other carriers at Tier 7, cannot afford to lose squadrons of aircraft due to mistakes. Thus, it takes a very experienced hand in order to play her to her maximum efficiency. Here's an example of that now. This is the first attack I'm making in this game, and as soon as I spot the enemy destroyer, I go ahead and tell my fighters to hang out in the middle of the map while I begin attacking the New Orleans with my strike force. However, no sooner does my strike force arrive at the New Orleans than my fighters, who have inexplicably relocated themselves overtop the entire enemy fleet, and get ripped to pieces. This is the main reason why I call the Graf Zeppelin gimmicky, as one mistake or oversight can cost you the entire game, as you'll quickly run out of your remaining aircraft and be left with nothing but your deck guns. Speaking of your deck guns, for 150mm guns, they don't do the most damage in the world. As you can see here, I'm taking on this enemy Nagato that is rushing me, and while it is a bot, it is still able to inflict considerable damage to my carrier before I am able to founder it. It is for this very reason that I strongly advise you not to use your deck guns as a primary means of damage. They are strictly used for defense only, for the occasional destroyer that gets too close to you, or for finishing off the last enemy on the team, as you can see me do here. Now, the Graf Zeppelin does have precise aim. However, I do not recommend speccing for it, as if you're using more than 2 charges on your precise aim in one game, you're probably playing the Graf Zeppelin way too aggressive. The other gimmicky thing I found with the Graf Zeppelin is how it can fight destroyers. With only AP dive bombers and the RNG that is landing bomb hits, you only really have your torpedo bombers and your deck guns to strike down enemy DDs, and with a wide arc on the torpedoes, you usually can only land 2 or 3, requiring you to rely heavily on your team in order to fend enemy destroyers off from capping the base or rushing to kill your carrier. Now, when I noticed the ACAT making a broadside turn to me, I knew torpedoes were already in the water, so there was no need for me to blow my hydro, so I just turned my carrier to face the oncoming torpedoes, and I actually begin launching my aircraft against the next sizable target, as trying to hit a destroyer with AP dive bombs and a wide torpedo arc is doing very little to help my team. It is for this reason that I recommend running the Graf Zeppelin in a division with other cruisers or destroyers. That way you can focus on the heavier capital ships, while the cruisers and destroyers can keep you safe from the enemy destroyers. Here's another example of the wide arc on the torpedo bomber drop, allowing the destroyer to easily slip in between the torpedoes, taking minimal damage. This is one of the reasons why I think the Graf is great as a premium carrier, but nowhere close to where it needs to be for a competitive carrier. as you're allowed to play the carrier and do decently in it to make money. However, its weaknesses are very evident when you have to take on lone destroyers without the help of your team. Now, all that being said, the deck guns are an interesting feature of the Graf to be able to use not only just for destroyers, but on enemy battleships and even carriers that venture too close. In this instance, I'm able to pick up a couple thousand extra points of damage because the 10-kilometer range of the 150mm deck guns allows me to put some pot shots into this enemy Graf Zeppelin and the other ships that wander within my range. Now, be sure to note the multitasking I'm doing while shooting down the enemy carrier. I'm still telling my aircraft to take off and attack, as although the deck guns are useful for ship damage from time to time, they don't deal near as much as your bombers or torpedo bombers, but they can still be a useful tool for cleaning up kills that your planes would have otherwise missed. And a little later in that very same game is another prime example of why I think the Graf Zeppelin is just an overall gimmicky ship. Here's two destroyers on relatively low health, and the AP dive bombers are able to not only hit them, but deal full penetrating damage rather than overpenning, giving me the double strike. This should conclude my review of the Tier 7 premium aircraft carrier, the Graf Zeppelin. I think the Graf Zeppelin is an amazing premium aircraft carrier, but it is not the best Tier 7 aircraft carrier. It does its job well, however, it punishes mistakes, leaving little room for errors from even the most experienced of players. Overall, I would recommend the Graf Zeppelin to anyone who enjoys playing carriers in general and would like a challenge that would allow them to not only play a unique ship, but earn a nice sum of silver as well. I would not recommend this carrier to anyone who only passively enjoys aircraft carriers or inexperienced carrier players looking to start a line. It's a great ship, don't get me wrong, but its extremely small hangar capacity leaves very little room for error, and even the most experienced of players will struggle if they mess up one strike. That should conclude the Graf Zeppelin review. Be sure to check out the other reviews on my channel, and let me know in the comment section which ship you'd like to see me review next. I bid you all good luck and fair seas.